Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Reading Rainbows, where we're reading Inkheart by Cornelia Funke, and today's chapter is chapter 47, Alone. Why, oh why, did I ever leave my hobbit hole, said poor Mr. Baggins, bumping up and down on Bomber's back. J.R.R. Tolkien, The Hobbit. When Elinor heard the shots, she jumped up so fast that she stumbled over her blanket in the dark and fell full length in the coarse grass. It pricked her hands as she got up. Oh God, they've caught them," she stammered, groping around in the night looking for the stupid dress the boy had stolen for her. It was so dark she could scarcely see her own feet. "Oh, it serves them right," she kept repeating to herself. "Why didn't they take me with them? The stupid idiots. I could have kept watch. I'd have been on the alert." When she finally found the dress and pulled it over her head with trembling fingers, she suddenly stood still. How quiet it was. Deathly quiet. "They've shot them," something whispered inside her. "That's why it's so quiet. They're dead. Dead as mutton. They're lying bleeding on that square outside the house. Both of them. Oh, my God. Now what?" she sobbed. "No, Elinor. No tears now. What use are tears? You must look for them. Come on." She stumbled off. Was she going the right way? "No, you can't come too, Elinor," Mortimer had said. He had looked so different in the black suit Farid had stolen for them. Like one of Capricorn's men, which of course was the point of the masquerade. The boy had even found him a shotgun. "Why not?" she had replied. "I'll even put that silly dress on." "A woman would be conspicuous, Elinor. You've seen for yourself. There are never any women in the streets at night, only the guards. Ask the boy." "I don't want to ask him. Why didn't he steal a suit from me too? Then I could have disguised myself as a man." "Well, because Farid comes from a story with very strict gender roles and women don't dress as men. So it never would have crossed his mind." They had no answer to that. "Elinor, please, we need someone to stay with our things." "Our things? You mean Dustfinger's dirty backpack?" She was so angry she had kicked it. How clever they'd thought themselves, but their disguise had done them no good. Who had recognized them? Basta? Flatnose? The man with the limp? "We'll be back by dawn, Elinor, with Meggie," Mo had said. Liar! She could tell from his voice that he didn't believe it himself. Elinor stumbled over a tree root, grabbed at something prickly, and fell to her knees, sobbing. Murderers! Murderers and fire-raisers! What had she to do with people like that? She should have known better when Mortimer suddenly turned up at her door asking her to hide the book. Why hadn't she just said no? Hadn't she thought instantly that the matchstick eater looked like someone with the word trouble written all over him in red? But the book. The book. Of course she hadn't been able to resist the book. They took that stinking Martin with them, she thought as she picked herself up again, but not me. And now they're dead. "Let's go to the police." How often she'd said that? But Mortimer had always given the same answer. No, Elinor, Capricorn would get Meggie well out of the way as soon as the first police officer set foot in the village. And believe me, Basta's knife is faster than all the police in the world. As he spoke, she had seen that little frown above his nose, and she knew him well enough to know what that meant. What was she going to do? She was alone, after all. "Don't make such a fuss, Elinor," she told herself. "You've always been alone, remember? Now use your head. Whatever's happened to her father, you must help the girl. Get her out of this thrice-accursed village. There's no one left but you to do it. If you don't, she'll end up as one of those timid maidservants who scarcely dare to raise their heads, and whose only purpose is to clean and cook for their ghastly master. Perhaps she'll be allowed to read aloud to Capricorn now and then, when he feels like it, and then when she's older, well, she's a pretty little thing." Ugh, God, just the thought of that. Elinor felt sick. I need a shotgun, she whispered, or a knife, a big sharp knife. I'll slip into Capricorn's house with it. Who's going to recognize me in this unspeakable dress? Mortimer had always thought she couldn't cope with the world except between the covers of a book, but she'd show him. Just how will you do that? Asked the little whispering voice inside. He's gone, Elinor. Gone like your books. She wept so loudly that she even alarmed herself and put a hand to her mouth. A twig cracked under her feet, and the light went out behind one of the windows in Capricorn's village. She had been right. The world was a terrible place, cruel, pitiless, dark as a bad dream. Not a good place to live in. Well, I mean, you're in a bad situation, but yeah, not the whole world is horrible. Come on now. Only in books could you find pity, comfort, happiness, and love. Books loved anyone who opened them. They gave you security and friendship and didn't ask anything in return. They never went away. Never, not even when you treated them badly. Love, truth, beauty, wisdom, and consolation against death. Who had said that? Someone else who loved books. She couldn't remember the author's name, only the words. Words are immortal, until someone comes along and burns them. She stumbled on, getting closer all the time. Pale light seeped from Capricorn's village, like milky water running into the night. 3 of the murderers were standing among the vehicles in the parking lot with their heads together. "Talk away," whispered Elinor. "Boast, why don't you, with your blood-stained fingers and black hearts. You'll be sorry yet for killing them. Would it be better to go down right away or wait until daylight? Both were mad ideas. She wouldn't get beyond the 3rd house in the village." One of the 3 men looked around, and for a moment Elinor thought he could see her. She scrambled back, slipped, and grabbed at a branch before she lost her footing again. Then came a rustling behind her, and a hand covered her mouth before she could turn around. She wanted to scream, but the fingers were pressing so hard on her lips she couldn't utter a sound. "So here you are. Any idea how long I've been looking for you?" It couldn't be true. She'd been so sure she would never hear that voice again. "Mortimer!" "Sorry, but I knew you'd scream. Come on!" Mortimer took his hand away from her mouth and gestured to her to follow him. She wasn't sure which she wanted to do most, fling her arms around his neck or hit him hard enough to hurt. Only when the houses of Capricorn's village were almost out of sight behind the trees did he stop. "Why didn't you stay at the camp, staggering around here in the dark? Have you any idea how dangerous it is?" Oh, this was too much. He'd walked so fast Elinor was still gasping for breath. "Dangerous?" In her fury she found it difficult to keep her voice down. "You're a fine one to talk about danger. I thought you were both dead. I thought they'd stabbed you or shot you or—" He rubbed a weary hand over his face. "Some of them are pretty poor shots," he said, "luckily." I notice how he said some of them and not all of them. His calm tone made Elinor want to shake him. "Really? And what about the boy?" "He's all right, too, except for a scratch on his forehead. When they started firing, the marten ran away, and Farid went after him. That's when a ricochet caught him. I've left him up at the camp." "The marten! Is that all you can think about, that vicious, stinking animal? Tonight has aged me by 10 years. Elinor's voice was rising again, and she forced herself to lower it. "I put on this horrible dress," she hissed, "and I could see you in my mind's eye. Lots of blood and terrible wounds. Oh, must you look at me like that?" she snapped. "It's a wonder you're not both dead. I should never have listened to you. We should have gone to the police. This time they must believe us. It was bad luck, Elinor, that's all," Mo interrupted. "Honestly, it just happened to be Cockrell on guard outside the house. The others wouldn't have recognized me." And what about tomorrow? Perhaps it'll be Basta or Flatnose then. How's it going to help your daughter if you're dead? Mo turned his back to her. But I'm not dead, Elinor, he said evenly, and I'm going to get Meggie out of there before she has to play the leading role at an execution. When they reached their camp, Farid was asleep. The blood-stained bandage Mortimer had tied around his head looked almost like a turban. Looked almost like the turban he'd been wearing when he first appeared among the columns of Capricorn's church. It looks worse than it is, Mo whispered, but if I hadn't held him back, he'd have chased halfway around the village after that Martin. And if they hadn't caught us, I expect he'd have slipped into the church, too, to see how Dustfinger was doing. Elinor only nodded and wrapped her blanket around her. It was a mild night. Anywhere else, it could have been called peaceful. How did you shake them off? She asked. Mortimer sat down beside the boy. Only now did Elinor see that he was carrying the shotgun that Farid had stolen for him. He took it off his shoulder and put it down in the grass beside him. They didn't follow us for long, he said. Why bother? They know we'll be back. All they have to do is wait. And this time Elinor would be with them, she promised herself. She never again wanted to feel as utterly deserted as she had this night. What are you planning to do next? She asked. Farid's idea was to start a fire. I thought that would be too dangerous, but we're running short of time. Fire? Elinor felt as if the word would burn her tongue. Ever since she'd found the ashes of her books, the mere sight of a matchstick had caused her to panic. PTSD. What a wonderful thing. Dustfingers taught the boys something about handling fire, and anyway, as we know, even the biggest fool can start one. If we were to send Capricorn's house up in flames... Are you crazy? Suppose it spreads to the hills. Mo bowed his head and stroked his hand over the barrel of the gun. I know, he said, but I can't see any other way. The fire will create a diversion. Capricorn's men will be kept busy putting it out, and in all the confusion I'll try to get through to Meggie while Farid releases Dustfinger. You're mad! This time Elinor couldn't help her voice rising. Farid muttered something in his sleep, put his hand nervously to the bandage around his head, and then turned over. Mo straightened the boy's blanket and leaned back against the tree trunk. That's our plan all the same, Elinor, he said. Believe me, I've been racking my brains till I thought I'd go crazy, but there's no other way. And if none of this is any use, I'll set fire to his damned church as well. I'll melt down his gold and reduce his whole damned village to dust and ashes, but I will get my daughter back. Elinor had no answer to that. She laid down and pretended to be asleep, even though she couldn't sleep a wink. When day dawned, she persuaded Mortimer to get a little rest himself, while she kept watch. Before long, he was fast asleep. As soon as his breath sounded peaceful and regular, Elinor took off the stupid dress, got into her own clothes, combed her tousled hair, and wrote him a note. Gone to get help. Back around midday. Please don't do anything until then. Elinor. She put the note into his half-opened hand, so that he would see it as soon as he woke up. As she tiptoed past the boy, she saw that the Martin was back. He was curled up beside Farid, licking his paws. His black eyes stared at Elinor as she bent over the boy to adjust his bandage. Aw, so Elinor does have at least a little bit of compassion in her if she's willing to adjust the bandage on him. Uncanny little beast. She could never take to him, but Farid loved him like a dog. Sighing, she straightened up. Look after them both, will you? She whispered, then set off. The car was still where she had hidden it under the trees. It was a good hiding place. The branches hung so low she missed the car herself at first. The engine caught immediately. Elinor listened anxiously to the sounds of the morning for a moment, but there was nothing to be heard apart from the birds, greeting the day as exuberantly as if it were their last. The nearest village, the last village through which she and Mortimer had driven, was scarcely a half-hour's drive away. There was sure to be a police station there. And that's the end of that chapter. I wonder how it's going to work out, Elinor trying to find the police, and will they actually listen to her this time? I don't know. We'll see as we keep reading the story, and I hope you're having a great day.